Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling, joined by VolQuest's Austin Price on social media. Cover the Vols at Austin Priceless with lots to unpack. On Rocky Top from an overtime win over Florida. Austin, what's up? How are you?
I'm great, guys. How are you doing? Will, did you hear us give you a good shout-out on TV last Thursday
I did.
night?
I enjoyed that. I tuned in to watch future Vol quarterback George McIntyre and three of my absolute favorites between you, Eric Kane, and Mark Packer, who our family goes way back with as well. And our whole family got a shout-out. Austin, your check's in the mail.
Look at you, Austin. Spreading the love.
The only thing we lacked was the intro music like I have right here on Arcade Up.
I'm not worthy of intro music yet. That's only Austin level on this show and on this station. Austin, there's a lot to get to with Tennessee right now. As you look at the offensive issues coming out of the Florida game, what is the biggest problem you think this offense is facing at the moment? Loaded
Getting off
question.
to a quick start.
I'm telling you.
It is. I mean, because there are several different answers, but, the facts are they just can't get out of the blocks. I mean, from the moment Josh Heupel stepped on campus, they've been a quick starting team. I mean, you could count on them to score on the first possession 80% of the time, and you could count on them to get out of the blocks in the first quarter. I mean, it's almost fail-proof. And, the last several games, they have just struggled to get out of the box. They never got out of the box at Oklahoma. It took to the third series. They never got out of and that was a great field position that the defense set them up on. But they never got out of the blocks at Arkansas, last week against Florida. They can't keep doing that. They've got to be able to get off to a quicker start. So to do that, I think, they've got to rely heavily on the running game. The truth is, though, they have not run the ball very well in the first half. Dylan Sampson's stats in the second half the last 2 weeks have been fantastic. The first half basically mine and your stats. I mean, it's not very good. And, Nico's got to play better. The offensive line has to protect better. The receivers have to play better. As Josh Heupel continues to, beat the drum, it's more than just one person. It's a group thing.
And also, we could have spent probably this whole segment just answering what all the different things are that are wrong with this Tennessee offense. But specifically in the running game, you look at it, like you mentioned, the last two first halves have been much worse than the second half. So what adjustments are you seeing? What is Tennessee doing differently to allow Dylan Sampson to have so much more success in the second halves of these last couple games?
Yeah, I think they've been able to, they've stayed between the tackles a lot more. They've pulled a few guards, and honestly, I just think they've tweaked a few things in the running game that are above my pay grade. Ramon probably could answer it better than I, but the one thing that surprises me is it's taken till halftime to make these adjustments in today's college football world, where you have iPads on the sideline and you can see it right there with the technology. I don't know why it's taken till halftime to make the adjustment. That's what's a bit of a head scratcher to me. But again, they're able to finally get it going in the second half. The last 2 weeks, that's all they had going in Arkansas, which is why they ended up losing that ball game. Tennessee were able to play a little better in the second half, throwing the football when Nico, after an abysmal first half this past week, and able to eke out an overtime victory. But ultimately, I do think Coach Heupel said it after the game, and when you go back and rewatch, they are, they're a yard or two away, from being, another 100 yards of total offense or more, right? You're overthrowing Squirrel by a half yard. You're overthrowing, Nimrod in the second half by a half yard. These are little things that are correctable. And I ran all of these golf analogies. It's like the pin's tucked behind the bunker. You got to fly at 110 and you only fly at 109, or, you fly a yard too far and it goes into the back bunker. Either way, you're so close to hitting a good shot, but ultimately end up with a dud. And so, Tennessee, do they connect on those this week? It obviously would help if you can find a way, but it also helped not to drop the ball at the mesh point after you start fast. Every time Tennessee started to go tempo the other night, Nico dropped the ball in the mesh point. 2 holding calls, 2 sacks. I mean, like every time you started to get anything going, they would, shoot themselves in the foot and end up going backwards or turn the ball over. Tennessee can't do that going forward. You can't keep doing that against good teams or you'll lose.
I fully didn't get the golf analogy, but I nodded my head
You
like
did.
we're
You're
good
like,
over here, Austin. Just needed you to know
You
that.
sold it.
I'm picking up what you're putting down a little bit over here, Austin. That's good with you. With that being said, though, Austin, when you look at the way Heupel did his press conference, if I'm not mistaken, yesterday, like you coached through the media. He mentioned the offensive line. You mentioned a second ago, as soon as they get it going, there's a hold from the offensive line or there's a sack. He mentioned 4 of the 5 during that thing. Who are the 4 that are good, or is it just a rotation between John Campbell does good and then Zalance do bad? Like, which one is it? Like, break it down to me if you could.
It's everybody. I mean, it is everybody. I mean, John Campbell's not played real well, but, Lance Hurd had some moments that are really positive and then just some head-scratching, moments where he struggled. And, to his defense, the kid's not played a ton of football in terms of starts, in his college career. And so, some of the piling on, and I was probably guilty of it a week ago, probably not very fair when you look at that he's not played a ton of football. Now, because of the money element and all this, these kids are, held to a different standard than you were. Mm-hmm. And, is that, fair or foul? I don't know. Still a touch foul because, that if you could have made money back in 2007, Ramon, would you not have made money in 2007? That's just kind of the world we live in now. And, they're still 19, 20, 21-year-old kids, that they know they have to play better. They have pride. And so the offensive line is, one that, Spraggins didn't pass protect very well against Arkansas. He's been fantastic in the run blocking. Yeah. But he's not been perfect in the pass blocking. Andre Carrick, he's flashed about as much as any offensive lineman Tennessee's had. But they have to play collectively better if they're going to, again, continue to have success and get the offense in the right track. Again, it's not just the O-line, it's the quarterback, it's the receivers, it's everybody, and they have to collectively play better.
For sure. And let's start with the most important piece on this one, too, Austin. It's Nico. I saw, I think it was Will Brothers, who you shot out on the broadcast, said it's not Nico's fault. We shot him into the stratosphere as far as the expectation of his play from day one. Is Nico still in a good spot for you mentally as a player and just where he should be progressively moving forward with the plays that he could make for the rest of this season?
Yeah, I think it's hard not to think that Nico is probably, a little bit shook. He's a pretty level-headed kid, doesn't get too high or too low, but I think, kids are human and they see what's being tweeted at them and all that stuff on social media. And, he's frustrated with how he's played, frustrated with when he has put the ball in the money, receivers have dropped it or he hadn't had time to throw it. I think the whole offensive staff, everybody's frustrated. So I don't think it's just Nico, but I do think it'd be hard to believe that he's not affected in some form or fashion, but he's also, a big play from totally, flipping the script. I don't think he's going to stay down in terms of in his feelings, and be, stuck there. I think, obviously, there's a pride factor involved that I think, he wants to perform well. And if anything, he's probably putting too much pressure on himself and trying to will it to happen. And that can also be a detriment as well.
Austin Price, our good friend of VolQuest, joining us as he does every time at this time of the week. So, Austin, when it comes to, I don't want to bring the mood down, but a big loss in linebacker Keenan Davis. I know. I'm sorry, but it had to be done. It is a bummer, though. It had to be a bummer. Out with an ACL tear for the rest of the season. Just how much did he mean and does he mean to the program? And who steps forward in this situation now at this point of the season?
Yeah, I think Tennessee's pretty thin there, and so they're going to have to figure some stuff out. Obviously Jeremiah Tielander's the one that has to step up in the starting role, But Caleb Perry's going to have to step up in the reserve role and be a factor there. And so, you hate to see it for Keenan. Obviously, from a leadership standpoint, he's uber important. I mean, from a playing standpoint, he's here a couple of years. He's played a couple of games. So I mean, like on the field, like it's probably not as big a loss just because you hadn't seen him play a ton of games. But from a leadership standpoint and a depth standpoint, it's a massive loss. And so, Tennessee becomes uber thin, and that means they can ill afford to lose T. Lander or Caleb Perry or Arion Carter or any of those players that, are very, very important to Tennessee's success on the defensive side of the ball. So, it's a blow, and Tennessee's going to have to figure out a way to have somebody step up, and hopefully, knock on wood, they can get Edwin Spillman back coming up here, in the next few weeks. He won't be available Saturday, but, can they get him back at some point in November? They're sure hoping so.
Austin Price joining us this morning on RK Dub, talking Tennessee as they gear up for their big battle with Alabama. What has changed with James Pierce? And I think I kind of know maybe where you're going to go with this, but he obviously showed up in a big way, but it's not like he hasn't been playing well this season.
No, he's just been, you've seen the stats show up more, in the last couple of games. Like he's been super disruptive and been making plays like crazy, as far as altering how the offense plays. But as far as, sack numbers and all those things, he's not been nearly as, effective as far as stats as he was a year ago. So, again, I think it's just a matter of, being more involved and maximizing your snaps.
VolQuest's Austin Price joining us this morning at Austin Priceless on Twitter. Austin, where's the health of Tennessee's receivers at this point heading into Alabama? And do you think we'll see more Dante Thornton on Saturday?
He certainly should be a week further along in his recovery. He only played a handful of snaps right there at the end of regulation and in overtime. And, they need him to play and they need him to be more healthy. So, a week more in the trainer's room and, rehabbing the knee, I think, he should be, closer to 100%, than he was this past week, where he was available, but, they wanted to try to hold him out if they could. And in an emergency situation like overtime, he had to go in and he made a play. So, I think for Dante, he's been their most explosive receiver to this point this year. And with, Squirrel with an AC joint, I mean, how many times Saturday did he get up and have his arm hanging? That's rough. And then, then Bruce got the ligament damage in his fingers. Tennessee, I think they probably need to play a few more receivers. And that includes getting Dante back out there. But I mean, if some of these guys can't make it through without getting further injured, maybe give a healthy guy a look. I don't know. That's just my opinion, based off, I just don't know if, does trying to force some of these guys that are dinged up into the game, does that hurt you more than help you?
Austin Price with us this morning. Austin, big task at hand this weekend, man. We're looking at Jaylen Midle, or what's his age again? The 17.
He's between 16 and 18 years old.
Yeah, the 17-year-old. Where do you decide to take your licks at, man? Do you shut down Midle, or do you go at Ryan Williams because he's so explosive?
Everybody, you shut them all down. You got to you can't. Right. You just pick your poison. I think with Milroe, you want to just try to build you want to build an umbrella and try to keep him in the pocket. I just don't think you can let him do what Lagway did the other night when they scored there late in the fourth quarter, which was step up, and then when you kind of come up to get him, then he throws it past you. They did a pretty good job a year ago of keeping him in the pocket for the most part. And I think that's something that you've got to try to do Saturday. You have to keep him in the pocket and then try to keep him from throwing deep shots, because that's ultimately what he does well. Like, he's not super accurate throwing it 10, 15 yards from the line of scrimmage, but he's uber accurate on deep balls.
VolQuest's Austin Price joining us this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Christian Charles obviously showed up in a big way for the Vols on Saturday. What is this guy all about? I know maybe not as many people know about him, but what can he do and what has he done here for this team that can be a positive moving forward?
Well, shoot, a month ago, he ended up with a labrum deal, and there was thoughts that he may be done for the year, and the kids just kind of gutted through it. I want to preface, we go back to Keenan Davis. Keenan Davis, for his labrum against Arkansas, he was going to play through it and keep playing.
Wow.
And then tore his ACL.
Wow.
Okay? So, like, that's about toughness. The same thing here with Christian Charles, labrum, like, just, bracing it up and playing. And really, it probably had the best game of his Tennessee career the other night. Like, really played well. I thought he flashed a little bit against Arkansas. I thought he played really well the other night, which, again, just adds to the depth. Keep the rotation coming. Andre Turntime did not have his best night the other night, but he's been playing solid. Obviously, Will Brooks has been playing solid. And then Jacoby Thomas is a heat-seeking missile when they let him get downhill.
Exactly right.
Yes, he is.
Austin, as you look at this matchup again, how does Tennessee make Niko be at his best? Is it throws outside the numbers? I know Brent wrote about that in his 10 things I think column over the weekend as well. Maybe Tennessee's throwing too much over the middle of the field, the tempo, moving the pocket. What do you think the next step is? How does Josh Heupel look at Niko Malava and try to make him as comfortable as possible against Alabama?
Well, I think, you roll the pocket. I thought he looked more comfortable doing that the other night than he did any other time. And so I think, anytime you can, just give him different looks. He can be from the pocket. He can be outside the pocket. When he's outside the pocket, obviously he has that run-pass option. And I think that can definitely help him because I think, his ability to make some plays with his legs. Again, he is a quarterback that can run. He's not a running quarterback. And so I think the more you can do that, the more you help him.
When you look at the Boers comments, if they were all true, speaking about how loud Nealon was.
It was fake.
It was fake?
I'll go ahead and say that now.
Well, okay. All right. I wanted to start some trash this morning, okay? But with that also being said, Austin, was it, and we'll mention it, have you heard it that loud ever in Nealon? And how big of an advantage was it against Florida as they had a delay of game too?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard Nealon louder than what it was. I thought Saturday was really, really good. Don't get me wrong, but I've heard it louder. But yeah, I mean, you can't get sucked into those cheap fakes or disinformation, as the political pundits love to say.
Fake news. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Tennessee's crowd's got to play a role Saturday. Period. Like they have to be loud from the jump. They've got to make Nealon a home field environment that Alabama talks about when they go back to Tuscaloosa going, I don't want to go back there for another 2 years.
I'd put that fake news up in the locker room, Austin, still. Just telling you.
Of course you do.
I'd want to believe it. He's that disrespectful.
Austin Price of VolQuest joins us Tuesdays here on the show. A must follow on VolQuest and on Twitter at Austin Priceless. Austin, we appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Austin.
Yes, sir. Austin Price.
It was on the internet. It's got to be true.
Deep fakes, man.
It got to be true.
So who put that out?
Oh, it was just
that
a Vol fan account.
It was just traveling.
It's just that time.
It was a fake quote from Kalen DeBoer talking about, I've been places at Washington, and it was not real.
Okay.
I wanted it. To me, it's real.
Sure.
Okay. Whatever it takes. I was telling people over the weekend, I got to generate a lot of hate going from Florida to Alabama back-to-back weeks. I mean, I can do it.
I know.
I'm gonna be able to muster up the courage. But that's a lot of it's a lot of hate, man.
Mm-hmm.
No, it ain't a lot, Kayla.
It's not a problem.
But
it's gonna be fine.
You use all your energy last week. How do you?
I'm replenished.
Okay,
I'm already back.
Get some good sleep. I get it.
Yeah. What are we talking about here?
It's
SEC ball.
If you got to be caffeinated and
Just-
lubricated, for lack of a better term,
and put in
to hate Alabama, then you're not a legit
you're not
Vols
a true
fan.
fan.
We're all number one from the New York Jets. We're sauced up. You
That's
hear
the
me?
thing. Everybody
Oh.
talks about it's Alabama hate week. No, Alabama hate week is 365 days a year.
What are we
Yeah.
talking
We
about?
We never take a week off from Alabama
Right?
hate week
Oh.
for people that graduate from the University of Tennessee or people who don't graduate from the University of Tennessee.
Either way.
By the way,
call it either way.
speaking of the Jets, I saw there, there's a guy who's asking for a trade already now.
Story in the NFL to follow.